Forget the car. Funmilayo Ransome-Kuti deserves a standing ovation for so much more than becoming the first woman to drive a car in Nigeria. History, it seems, has a knack for highlight. In this case, remembering her only for a symbolic drive. But Funmilayo Ransome-Kuti was a lioness, a fearless advocate who shattered glass ceilings and fought for the rights of women long before the engine ever roared. In this video, we tell the story of Funmilayo Ransome-Kuti, the Lion of Lisabi. Widely recognized as the first woman to drive a car in Nigeria, her story of first began before she ever became an adult. In 1914, she became the first female student to be admitted into Abeokuta Grammar School, the first grammar school in Nigeria. Amazingly, she didn't just have first, she also had her fair share of onlys. In 1947, she was the only woman to join the NCNC delegation to protest the proposals of the 1946 Richard's Constitution in Britain. Her life journey of first and onlys made her a force to be reckoned with on all fronts, home and abroad. Frances Abigail Funmilayo was born on the 25th day of October 1900 to a seamstress and a small planter whose father had been an emancipated, baptized slave returnee from Sierra Leone. She received a Western education up to secondary school before pursuing further education in England, where she discovered socialism and anti-colonialism. In 1919, she went to Britain to study at the Wincham Hall School for Girls, where she was taught subjects such as French, elocution, music, and dressmaking. But before she returned to Nigeria in 1922, she had demonstrated the first sign of her rejection of British imperialism, dropping her Christian names of Frances Abigail and adopting her Yoruba name Funmilayo, shortened Funmilayo, which means God has given me joy. She later changed her name again to Funmilayo Anikulapo Kuti, taking a cue from her son, Fela, who dropped the name ransom due to its slave connotations. More so, she was always seen donning traditional Yoruba attire, never confining herself to the ideals of Western formality. In 1925, she married Israel Olodotun Ransome-Kuti, an educationist and co-founder of Nigeria's Teachers Union. The couple had 4 children, Dolupo, Olikoye, Olufela, which became Our Fela, and Beko, and worked as teachers. Most people know her as the first woman to drive a car in Nigeria. Others sum up the entirety of her life achievement with the title of Fela's mom. But she was more than that, and the activism that Fela, her third son, took up can be said to have been passed on to him by his mother. Funmilayo Ransome-Kuti became known around the country for her activism. Some even conferred on her the title of Mother of Nigeria and addressed her as such. However, her most prominent and widely known title is Lioness of Lisabi. Lisabi being the traditional hero of the Eba people. It was the 1943 Great Whip and the 1948 Tax Revolt that earned her the title. The Great Whip episode saw women shed tears over the burden of income tax. According to a March 1959 report in South Africa's Drum magazine, thousands of Abeokuta women went about shedding tears. The Alake and the authorities could do nothing to stop it and gave way to the women's demands. The Oba, Sir Ladapo Ademola II, Abeokuta's new Alake, and the first to have had a European-style education, came into power in 1920. He took advantage of his position and British support to steal lands and embezzle taxes. Women were his first target because they brought chickens, yam, gari, and rice into the city. All the Alake had to do was set up a few roadblocks in order to confiscate a large part of the women's wares, offering justifications that no one should eat as long as the soldiers had not been fed. Women, paying both their own taxes and through their hard work some of their husbands' taxes, were providing at least half of the district's revenues. They became more and more impatient, not only with the ill treatment they endured to make them pay these taxes, but also with the fact that despite the obligation imposed on them, they had neither the right to vote nor any representation, merely the right to complain of having been beaten and bullied. In our present time, and I dare say in the early 1900s, the bulk of what the average 14 and 15-year-old knew and thought regarding taxes was that it was an adult's affair. The thought of paying taxes was relegated to the period when they had become full-fledged adults, with a well-paying job or running a successful business. But this was not the case that confronted this female age grade in 1918. Their male counterpart, however, were left off the hook, leaving them free from tax payment until they turned 18. The girls were first of all considered to be of marriageable age, an anomaly in itself, thus requiring them to pay the tax of 3 shillings a year, which converted to today's currency and value will go to a little over 27,000 naira. 27,000 naira, which is really close to the minimum wage, a big deal for a lot of people now, will have even been a bigger deal for a teenage girl in the early 1900s. Someone had to rise up to the challenge and fight the injustice that was playing out, and the lioness herself volunteered to do just that. These occurrences and the injustices that accompanied them laid the foundation for the birthing of the Abeokuta Women's Union, AW, by Funmilayo Ransome-Kuti in 1946. The aim was to defend, protect, preserve, and promote social, economic, cultural, and political rights and the interests of women in Eba land. Her aim and objectives were outlined in a document in 1947 called AW's Grievances. One of the subheadings was Strip Naked. It contained a list of wrongdoings by traditional ruler for misusing his authority and by the administration for not providing medical and educational facilities for women. It was said that the government agents went about raiding homes and stripping girls of their clothes in order to access their age for the purpose of taxation. And as the work was based on commission, extortion and abuse were rife. A mass demonstration took place on the 29th and 30th November 1947, led by Ransome-Kuti, and pulled in more than 10,000 women. They charged to the Alaki's palace, singing and dancing in protest against the authorities and demanding an end to the unfair taxation. The campaign against the Alaki publicly started with a petition, which resulted only in an increase of taxation on women. The demonstration was repeated 10 days later. The Alaki, in the meantime, employed divisive tactics by promising women positions of responsibility, thus trying to undermine Funmilayo's influence. The protest would come to be known as the Abeokuta Women's Revolt and was reminiscent of the Aba Women's Riot of 1929. As with the Igbo women of 1921, the Agba women of Abeokuta focused their opposition on a local representative of British power rather than on the British power itself. The tendency to talk down on women, especially women who are doing well in their areas of pursuit, has been in existence for a while, lasting even till date. Fortunately for Funmilayo, the cup did not pass her by. She also drank her full share from it. Not everyone agreed with Funmilayo's activities, and her opponents found willing allies in the male-dominated press. One article about AW entitled "Women May Seize Power" stated, "There is a growing suspicion that the women of Abeokuta mean to seize power and to bring the country absolutely under their own control. A large number of people are opposed to this idea and are urging the early steps to be taken to end this move. Abeokuta is going the wrong way. Soon there will be a she who must be obeyed." Thankfully, this particular public opinion was not the only public opinion available. In December 1947, Funmilayo's husband arranged a meeting of men from Abeokuta town, during which they decided to support the demands of their wives and urged the traditional ruler to explore other ways of generating revenue. Talk about a man supporting his wife's work. It took the women and their supportive men nearly 3 years of continuous struggle to win, during which they had remained cohesive, organized, and determined, and had not resorted to violence. The Alaki held out until 3rd January 1949, when the pressure became too much and he was forced to give in, after which he abdicated. The tax on women was abolished, and the prevailing circumstances forced the Alaki to go into exile. He was sent to Osogbo, a town more than 200 kilometers away. After that, 4 women, including Funmilayo Ransome-Kuti, were named to a new interim council. The AWU continued to act as a pressure group every time the interests of Eba women were endangered. After their win against tax imposition in 1949, Funmilayo created the Nigerian Women's Union (NWU) to support women's rights across the country. She set up branches around Nigeria and ensured educational opportunities for girls and women. She also worked towards improving the participation of Nigerian women in politics. The government named her a member of the Order of Niger in 1965 to appreciate her hard work. One would think her to be a feminist, but she was more of an African feminist, an ideology concerned not with the welfare of women alone, but also inclusive of men, a fight for all. She did more than just women supporting women. She was a woman who stood up for not just women alone, but her nation as a whole. Funmilayo Ransome-Kuti's political activism led her to her membership in the NCNC, where she was the only woman to hold an executive position. She was also the only woman to join the Nigerian delegation to London in 1947 to lodge a formal protest with the Secretary of State for the Colonies. During this visit, she informed British unions and the Crown of what was happening in Abeokuta. A major bone of contention for the NCNC was the British majority composition of the Executive Council and the lack of electoral representation for women. She had regular speaking engagement on women's rights both at home and overseas, and toward her region, raising awareness about women's political and voting rights. Funmilayo traveled far and wide and gave lectures everywhere she went to highlight the struggle of Nigerian women and campaign for their rights. In recognition of her efforts, she was honored with a doctorate degree. Among others, some of her notable achievements include the conferment of the chieftaincy title of Oloye in Yoruba land, and was the first woman to be appointed to the House of Chiefs. Being the first African woman to visit China, where she delivered lectures about Nigerian women's rights and met Mao Zedong. In recognition of her effort, she won the Lenin Peace Prize in 1970, being the only Nigerian woman to achieve that feat. Legend has it that the people who get to make a change in this world are those who dare to do things differently. Others are of the opinion that it is a little bit of madness that makes the world go round. Put another way, they define the term MAD as an acronym, MAD, which stands for making a difference. We can see for certain that Funmilayo Ransome-Kuti, the famed Lioness of Lisabi, dared to do things differently. Her long trail of first and only do well to speak for her, and in the long run succeeded in making a lot of difference. On February 18, 1977, approximately 1,000 soldiers stormed a compound in Lagos. It belonged to the famed Afrobeat musician and critic of Nigeria's military government, Fela Kuti. During the raid, Kuti's 76-year-old mother was thrown from a second-story window. She sustained injuries from which she never recovered and died at the General Hospital in Lagos on April 13, 1978. Her name was Funmilayo Ransome-Kuti, our hero. Steve Biko said, and I quote, "It is better to die for a cause that will live than to live for a cause that will die." Funmilayo enjoyed the best of both worlds. She lived for a cause that lived and ended up dying for a cause that still lived, in the life of her son Fela and the many others who take a stand for truth, whether they are applauded or outrightly persecuted. Thankfully, the tragic event that led to her death didn't kill the seed of activism that she had planted. Rather, it only made more potent the truth that the dying process only produces a better harvest. One woman stood up for her world, and the world had not remained the same ever since. The name and person of Funmilayo Ransome-Kuti will never be erased so far as there are men and women who stand up against injustice. Thank you for watching this episode. Kindly give our channel a boost by liking this video, subscribing and sharing with your friends. Until I see you again, bye bye.